The jungle was alive with sound. Birds called from the canopy above, insects hummed in the thick air, and the steady rhythm of footsteps pressed through the undergrowth. A small group of explorers made their way deeper into the forgotten lands of Central America. They carried only what was necessary: ropes, lights, and tools. The leader of the group, a man named Arun, walked in front with steady steps. His eyes were sharp, not only watching the ground but also searching the trees and rocks for signs of the past. For months, Arun had followed fragments of old maps and stories told by local villagers. Many believed in a hidden place buried beneath the roots of the jungle, a place tied to the mysteries of the Mayan calendar. Some said it was only a myth, a tale to frighten or amuse. But Arun believed there was truth behind it. He had dedicated years of study to ancient civilizations, and his heart told him the land still guarded secrets no one had seen for centuries. Behind him walked Myra, a skilled historian who had memorized countless Mayan symbols and glyphs. She carried a small journal where she sketched everything they found. Her eyes gleamed with curiosity, and her voice was calm, often reminding the group of the importance of respect when dealing with history. Beside her was Rafi, the youngest member of the team, strong in body but also quick to laugh even when the work grew hard. He carried most of the equipment on his back, joking that he was nothing more than a walking storage chest. By midday, the sun beat down, but the thick cover of the trees softened its light. Sweat clung to their faces as they pushed through vines and roots. Then Arun stopped. Before him, half hidden by moss and earth, stood a wall of stone. It was not a natural formation. The shape was too precise, too deliberate. The wall was covered with carvings, though many had faded with time. "This is it," Arun whispered, his voice steady but filled with awe. The group spread out, brushing away dirt and pulling away vines. The carvings became clearer, lines of glyphs, spirals, and figures reaching toward the sky. At the center of the wall, there was a circular shape carved deep into the stone. Myra touched it gently with her fingertips. "It looks like the calendar," she said softly. "But it is different. More complex." Rafi pressed his hand against the stone. It was cool, even in the heat of the day. He pushed harder, and the circular carving shifted slightly. A faint grinding sound came from within. The three explorers stepped back as the wall began to tremble. Slowly, with the weight of centuries, the circular carving rotated, and the hidden stone door slid aside. A breath of cold air escaped from the darkness beyond. They exchanged glances. None of them spoke, but each felt the same mixture of fear and excitement. Arun lit a torch and held it high. The flame flickered, casting light into the chamber. With careful steps, they entered. The chamber stretched deep beneath the ground, larger than they expected. The walls were covered with more carvings, glowing faintly in the light. The air was heavy, untouched by time. At the center stood an enormous structure, a stone calendar wheel taller than any man, its surface covered with gears, rings, and moving pieces. Though it had been hidden for ages, parts of it seemed alive, humming faintly as though it breathed. "This cannot be only Mayan work," Myra said, her voice shaking. "The design is too advanced." Arun walked closer, studying the strange mechanism. The calendar wheel was divided into sections, each filled with symbols that shifted slightly when he moved around it. He reached out but stopped himself, remembering Myra's words about respect. Instead, he observed. The wheel seemed to align with points on the walls where star maps had been carved. The entire chamber looked like both a clock and a map of the sky. Rafi walked along the edge of the chamber, running his hand over the walls. "Look at this," he called. "The stars, the sun, the moon. It is all here." Myra joined him and gasped. "These are not only constellations from Earth. Some of these formations do not belong to our sky." The realization struck them all at once. This chamber was not just a calendar or a tomb. It was something greater, something that connected the ancient Mayan people with knowledge far beyond their world. Arun's heart pounded. He imagined the ancestors who had built this place, carving symbols with hands guided by something more than simple understanding of the heavens. Perhaps they had been visited by travelers from afar, or perhaps they had discovered something humanity had long forgotten. As they studied the chamber, a soft vibration filled the air. The calendar wheel moved slightly on its own, the gears turning with a sound like grinding stone. Light shimmered from cracks in the carvings, glowing with a faint golden hue. The explorers stepped back, eyes wide. The wheel turned again, slowly but with purpose, as though it had been waiting for someone to awaken it. The air grew colder, the ground trembling with each rotation. At last, beams of light shot from the center of the wheel, striking the walls. The carvings lit up, forming patterns of stars and shapes that filled the chamber with strange beauty. Myra covered her mouth in awe. "It is alive," she whispered. Arun felt a deep weight in his chest. This was no ordinary discovery. This was not only history but a doorway to something unknown. He turned to his companions, his voice low but firm. "We are standing in a place built to endure the ages. Whatever its purpose is, it has been waiting for us. The question is, why?" The chamber's glow reflected in their eyes. None of them answered. The hum of the calendar grew stronger, filling the silence with its strange, ancient rhythm. Deep inside, each of them understood one truth. Their lives, and perhaps the fate of all humanity, had just changed. The three explorers stood inside the chamber as the wheel continued to move with slow and steady force. The faint golden light grew brighter, spreading across the stone floor and climbing toward the ceiling. The entire room seemed alive, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for this moment. Arun held the torch higher, though its flame now looked weak compared to the glow coming from the calendar. Myra clutched her journal tightly against her chest. She wanted to sketch every detail, but her hands trembled too much to draw. Raffi stared wide-eyed at the shifting lights, his usual playful nature replaced by a deep silence. None of them had expected this. They had come to find carvings, perhaps a sealed tomb, maybe even an artifact or two. But this was something greater than anything they could have imagined. The calendar wheel clicked again, louder this time, and the gears turned with smooth precision. Suddenly, a section of the chamber's floor opened, revealing a hollow space beneath. Out of it rose a tall stone pillar covered in glowing symbols. At the top of the pillar was a crystal sphere, perfectly clear and shining like captured starlight. Arun approached slowly, his steps echoing in the chamber. The closer he moved, the stronger the vibration in the air became. It was not only a sound but also a feeling, like a steady rhythm pressing into his chest. Myra followed behind, her eyes fixed on the crystal. "This must be the heart of the chamber," she whispered. Raffi looked around nervously. "It feels like it is watching us. Like it knows we are here." Arun raised his hand toward the sphere but stopped just short of touching it. The crystal pulsed with light, as though responding to his presence. Then, without warning, beams of golden light shot outward from the crystal, connecting with the carvings along the walls. The chamber filled with patterns of stars, planets, and strange shapes that stretched across the stone like a moving sky. The explorers gasped. They were no longer staring at simple carvings. They were inside a living map of the universe. The ceiling above became a dome of stars, shifting and glowing with gentle movement. They saw constellations they knew: Orion, the Pleiades, and the Milky Way, but also patterns of stars no human eyes had ever charted. Myra slowly turned in a circle, overwhelmed by the beauty. "It is a star map, but not only of our sky. This is a map of many skies, many worlds." Arun's voice was heavy with wonder. "The Mayans could never have made this alone. This knowledge is far beyond their time." As they watched, the lights shifted, and a series of images appeared within the star map. At first they looked like distant landscapes: mountains made of crystal, oceans glowing with strange colors, towers that reached higher than clouds. Then the images grew darker. A shadow spread across the stars, and from that shadow came shapes of enormous ships, their designs sharp and mechanical. The vision showed them moving across the skies, swallowing light wherever they went. The three explorers stood frozen. The chamber was not only showing them the stars, it was telling a story. Myra whispered softly, as if afraid to break the moment. "This is a warning." The images continued. They saw a group of tall, graceful beings with elongated heads and bright eyes, who seemed to guide the ancient Mayan people. These beings pointed to the stars and carved the same calendar symbols that now glowed around them. Then the vision shifted again, showing the dark mechanical shapes approaching Earth. The graceful beings fought to protect humanity, but the images ended with them leaving, retreating into the stars while sealing the chamber beneath the Earth. The calendar wheel clicked once more and came to a stop. The light dimmed, leaving the explorers standing in silence. Only the faint glow of the crystal sphere remained. Raffi finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Did we just see the past, or the future?" Myra swallowed hard. "Both, I think. The beings came long ago, and they left this chamber for us. But the ships we saw, the ones of metal and shadow, they are meant to return." Arun stood silently, his eyes locked on the crystal. A deep feeling of responsibility filled him. The chamber had been hidden for centuries, waiting for someone to uncover it. Now that it was open, the message was clear. Humanity was being warned. He turned to his companions. "This was not built for them. It was built for us. Whatever those ships are, the chamber was meant to prepare humanity." Raffi frowned. "Prepare us for what? We do not have ships like that. We do not have weapons like that." Myra placed her hand on the stone pillar. "Perhaps the chamber holds more than a warning. Perhaps it holds answers." They explored deeper into the chamber, searching for hidden passages. On the far wall, they discovered a small doorway carved with spiral patterns. With effort, they pushed it open, revealing a narrow tunnel that led to a second chamber. Inside, the air was colder, and the carvings were different. Instead of calendars and star maps, these walls showed images of human figures. The figures were not warriors with weapons but people standing together in circles, raising their hands toward the sky. In the carvings, beams of light connected them, as if their unity itself was a source of power. Raffi studied the images, confused. "This does not make sense. Where are the weapons? Where is the technology to fight those ships?" Myra shook her head. "Maybe it is not about weapons. Maybe it is about us. The beings who built this chamber must have believed humanity's true strength was not in machines but in something else." Arun felt a strange calm as he studied the figures on the wall. He remembered the way the calendar wheel had moved, responding not to force but to their presence. It was almost as if the chamber had been waiting for human hands, human minds, and human hearts to activate it. He spoke with quiet certainty. "This place is not just a calendar. It is not just a map. It is a key, and the key is us." The three of them stood in silence, surrounded by the glow of ancient symbols. The air was heavy with meaning. Outside, the jungle remained unchanged, unaware of what had been uncovered beneath its roots. But within the chamber, something had awakened that was far greater than stone and carvings. They had found a door to the stars, a message across time, and a warning of danger yet to come. The Mayan calendar was not a measure of days. It was a bridge between humanity's past and its future. And for the first time, they understood that their discovery was not just an end to a mystery but the beginning of something far larger. The air inside the hidden chamber grew heavier as the explorers studied the second room. The walls glowed faintly, as if the figures carved into the stone were alive. Human shapes stood side by side, their arms raised toward the stars. Light connected them, forming a circle of unity. The more Arun, Myra, and Raffi stared, the more it seemed that the walls were trying to speak without words. Myra opened her journal and copied the images as quickly as she could. Her pencil moved fast, but her mind raced faster. She understood that these carvings were not random designs. They carried a message. She had studied Mayan glyphs for many years, but these were different. They were simpler, almost as if they had been made for those in the future who might not understand the old language. "The meaning is clear," Myra said softly. "They believed in people, not weapons. They believed humanity itself was the answer." Rafi shook his head, still uneasy. "I cannot believe it. How can people fight ships that large, machines that strong? We cannot win with only our hands." Arun kept his gaze on the carvings. His voice was calm but firm. "Maybe it is not about fighting in the way we think. Maybe it is about surviving, resisting, and becoming more than we are. The beings who built this place knew something we do not. That is why they left it behind." As if responding to his words, the crystal sphere in the first chamber pulsed again. A deep vibration filled the walls, spreading into the ground. The calendar wheel turned once more, but this time it moved faster, the gears clicking in rapid succession. Beams of light shot outward, forming a circle in the air. The explorers returned quickly to the first chamber. The star map appeared again, brighter than before. But this time the images were not only visions of the past. They showed movement, as though time itself was flowing forward. The graceful beings returned to the map, pointing once again to the sky. They showed planets, stars, and pathways of light that stretched between worlds. Then the image shifted to Earth, glowing softly as if marked with importance. Suddenly, the vision darkened. The shadow of the mechanical ships returned, spreading across the stars. The ships moved closer, growing larger in the vision until they filled the chamber with their sharp outlines. A low sound filled the air, like the grinding of metal. Myra covered her ears, but the sound was not only heard. It was felt inside the body, a heavy vibration that sank deep into their bones. The vision showed the ships descending toward Earth. Fire and darkness followed them. Then, just as quickly, the image ended, replaced by the glowing calendar wheel. Silence returned. Only their breathing broke the stillness. Myra lowered her hands slowly. Her face was pale. "It is the future. They are showing us what is coming." Rafi paced back and forth, his voice rising with fear. "Then we are finished. We have no defense against ships like that. We cannot stop them." Arun stood still, thinking. His eyes remained on the crystal sphere, which continued to glow faintly. "The chamber is not here to tell us we are finished. It is here to warn us. Warnings are given so they can be answered. If the builders believed there was no hope, they would not have left this place behind." The weight of his words settled over them. Rafi stopped pacing. Myra stared at the crystal with new determination. "Then the calendar is not a record of time," she said. "It is a countdown." They all looked at one another. The realization struck like a storm. The wheel was not only marking the days of the past. It was marking the time until the shadow returned. Myra ran her fingers across the glowing glyphs carved near the base of the wheel. "If we can understand how to read this, we may know when they are coming." Rafi leaned closer, watching her trace the patterns. "But what if it is soon? What if we do not have enough time?" Arun placed a steady hand on Rafi's shoulder. "Then we do what humanity has always done. We adapt, we unite, and we survive. This is what they believed in us for. For hours they studied the wheel." Myra sketched symbols and compared them to her knowledge of Mayan glyphs. Slowly, a pattern formed. The outer rings of the wheel matched the cycles of the Earth, Sun and Moon. But the inner rings showed movements of stars far beyond. It was a clock, yes, but not only of Earth. It was a clock of the galaxy itself. Myra finally sat back, her hands shaking. The cycle ends soon. Not in centuries. Not even in decades. The final alignment will come in our time. Rafi's face turned pale. Then it is not only a warning. It is a deadline. Arun closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of the world above, the cities full of people who had no idea of what slept beneath their feet, the children who laughed without fear, the countless lives living in peace. He opened his eyes again, filled with resolve. Then we must carry this message to the world. They need to know. The chamber was left for us, but not for only the three of us. It belongs to all of humanity. The decision weighed heavily on them, but none argued. They knew the truth of his words. Before they left the chamber, Arun placed his hand on the stone pillar one last time. The crystal sphere pulsed gently beneath his touch, as if acknowledging him. For a moment, he felt something deep within himself, a quiet voice that was not a sound but a feeling. It spoke of courage, of unity, of a strength hidden inside every human heart. They stepped back into the jungle, the heavy air of the chamber replaced by the warm breath of the forest. Birds still sang, the river still flowed, and life continued as if nothing had changed. But for them, everything was different. They carried with them not only the discovery of a lifetime but the weight of a warning. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a shadow was moving closer. The calendar had spoken. Humanity's time was running short. The journey back from the jungle felt longer than before. Arun, Myra, and Rafi carried no gold, no jewels, no treasures of the kind most explorers hoped to find. Yet in their hands and journals rested something far greater. They carried knowledge, a warning left for all of humanity. Every step they took out of the forest carried the weight of the future. When they finally reached the nearest city, news of their discovery spread quickly. At first, people treated it as another strange story of ruins hidden in the jungle. But when Myra presented her careful sketches, when Arun spoke with steady voice about the living calendar and the visions it had revealed, interest turned to concern. Within weeks, the three explorers were invited to speak before a council of scientists, historians, and leaders. The council was gathered in a large hall filled with people from many nations. The air was tense, filled with questions waiting to be asked. Arun stood at the front of the room. He placed Myra's drawings on a table for all to see. The star maps, the crystal pillar, the figures of unity, and the images of shadowed ships were displayed. Myra explained the details of the glyphs, her calm voice carrying the weight of truth. She spoke of the countdown carved into the wheel, the alignment that was approaching soon. The council members listened in silence, but once she finished, voices rose in a storm. "This is myth, not science," one man declared. "A trick of light in an old cave. Nothing more." Another stood, her face stern. "And if it is true? You say ships of shadow are coming to Earth. What do you expect us to do, fight the sky?" Arguments broke across the hall. Some demanded the chamber be sealed again, left as a relic of the past. Others believed it must be studied more deeply, even if it meant exposing its secrets to the entire world. Rafi, though younger than most in the room, could not stay silent. He rose from his seat and faced the leaders. "You did not see it? You did not feel it? The chamber is alive. It is not only a message but a warning. If you turn away now, you turn away from the truth." His words brought quiet for a moment, but the storm soon returned. One scientist leaned forward, his voice calm but doubtful. "Suppose the warning is real? Suppose the ships will return? What can humanity do? We have no weapons of such power. We cannot prepare for an enemy we do not understand." Arun stepped forward. His eyes swept the hall, his voice steady. The chamber itself gave the answer. It did not show weapons. It showed people. Circles of men and women standing together, united. The beings who built it did not believe in machines more powerful than the enemy. They believed in us. If we unite, if we stand as one, then we will be ready. A heavy silence followed his words. Some looked inspired, others unconvinced. Unity was not an easy thing to ask of humanity. Nations carried rivalries, governments carried mistrust, and people often struggled to see beyond their own borders. Myra spoke next, her voice softer but no less powerful. The calendar is not about destruction. It is about endurance. The Mayan people believed the cycle of time was endless. Every ending was also a new beginning. The chamber is telling us that if we endure together, we can pass through the shadow and begin again. The council fell quiet. For the first time, many in the room looked uncertain, caught between doubt and belief. Outside the hall, news spread quickly. Newspapers printed drawings of the calendar, and people filled the streets with questions. Some believed the explorers. They spoke with fear but also hope, saying humanity had been chosen for something greater. Others mocked the idea, calling it nothing more than another end-of-the-world tale. In schools, children sketched the calendar wheel in their notebooks. In cafes, strangers debated whether the vision of shadowed ships was real. Some scientists began independent studies, traveling to the jungle to see the chamber for themselves. The world was divided. In the weeks that followed, Arun, Myra, and Rafi faced endless questions. They were interviewed, studied, doubted, and praised. Each night they returned to their small room, weary but certain of what they had seen. One evening, as the three sat together, Rafi spoke with frustration. They argue and argue, but nothing changes. Some believe, some laugh. By the time they agree, it may be too late. Myra placed a hand on his arm. Change does not come quickly. But truth spreads. The more people see the chamber, the harder it will be to deny. The builders left it for all of humanity, not just us. In time, the world will listen. Arun stared out the window at the city lights. And if they do not, then we must still be ready. We cannot wait for leaders to agree. We must prepare ourselves. Their words proved true. Within months, expeditions were launched to study the chamber. Teams of scientists set up equipment inside, measuring the strange energy that pulsed from the crystal. Historians compared the glyphs with other ancient records, searching for connections. Engineers studied the gears of the calendar wheel, amazed at the precision of a machine so old yet still alive. But even as more evidence appeared, the debate continued. Some leaders warned that sharing such knowledge would cause panic. Others believed that hiding the truth would be the greater danger. At last, an international assembly was called. Representatives from many nations gathered to discuss the discovery. The chamber was no longer just an explorer's tale. It had become a matter for the world. The assembly lasted for days. Words filled the great hall: fear, hope, anger, doubt. Some called for weapons to be built, though no one knew what kind could face ships from the stars. Some called for peace, saying the shadows might not bring war but only passage. And some, remembering Arun's words, spoke of unity. By the end, no single decision was made. But something had changed. The chamber had planted a seed. The world had been forced to look upward, beyond the borders of nations, beyond the limits of Earth. For the first time in history, humanity began to wonder not only about life among the stars but about its own place in the universe. In the quiet of night, Arun, Myra, and Rafi returned once more to the chamber. They stood before the glowing wheel as it turned with slow rhythm. The crystal pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and patient. Arun placed his hand on the stone once more. His voice was steady. The world may take time to listen. But when the shadow comes, we will be ready. We will endure. Myra and Rafi joined him, each placing a hand on the stone. The glow brightened, as if answering their promise. The calendar waited, marking the days, turning with silent power. Above, in the endless sky, the stars burned with calm light. Somewhere far away, the shadowed ships drifted closer. And on Earth, humanity began to prepare. The world moved forward, but the chamber continued its steady rhythm. The calendar wheel turned with slow grace, its gears clicking like a heart that never stopped. Scientists measured the glow of the crystal, historians argued over the meaning of the glyphs, and leaders continued to debate. Yet the truth remained the same. The cycle was nearing its end. Months passed, and the news of the chamber spread across every corner of the earth. Some people prepared in quiet ways, stocking food, teaching their children about unity, and sharing the story of the calendar. Others mocked the idea, calling it fear dressed as legend. But whether believed or doubted, the story could not be silenced. One night, long after the world had grown restless with waiting, the skies changed. Astronomers were the first to notice. Strange objects appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were not comets, nor were they meteors. Their movement was too steady, too precise. Telescopes tracked them as they drew closer, and their shape became clear. They were ships. The news spread in hours. The world erupted in shock. Television screens showed grainy images of dark shapes gliding through space. They were enormous, larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. Their outlines were sharp, cold, and mechanical. They traveled without sound, without light, like shadows moving against the stars. In the chamber, the crystal sphere pulsed with violent brightness. The gears of the calendar wheel spun faster than before, shaking the walls with their force. Arun, Myra, and Rafi were there when it happened. They felt the deep vibration in the ground, the warning carried through stone. Myra clutched her journal tightly. Her voice trembled. The cycle has ended. The shadow is here. Rafi's eyes were wide with fear, yet his fists were clenched. So it is true. They are coming for us. Arun stood silently, his gaze fixed on the glowing sphere. His heart felt heavy, yet he was not surprised. Deep inside, he had known this day would come. The chamber had not lied. Within days, the ships entered the orbit of the outer planets. Probes sent to study them disappeared, swallowed by silence. No signals came back. The shadows moved forward without hesitation, crossing the empty space with slow and steady purpose. On Earth, chaos grew. Governments rushed to prepare. Armies were placed on high alert. Satellites were reprogrammed to track the ships, though their movements followed no known pattern. Cities held their breath as fear filled every street. In the great halls of power, leaders argued over what to do. Some called for weapons to be launched, though no one knew if human missiles could even scratch the metal giants. Others demanded communication, hoping the shadows could be reasoned with. Many simply froze, unable to act against something so far beyond their understanding. In the middle of this storm, Arun, Myra, and Rafi were invited once more to speak. The chamber had become the center of attention, a beacon of hope or fear depending on who looked upon it. They told the leaders again what they had seen. The ships were not strangers. They were the same shadow that the ancient beings had fought long ago. Myra spoke firmly. The chamber never showed weapons. It showed us. Humanity's strength is not in machines greater than theirs but in unity. If we divide, we fall. If we stand together, we endure. Many listened, but many still doubted. Fear made the world tremble, and unity was fragile. Then the moment came. The first shadowed ship entered Earth's orbit. It hung above the atmosphere, blocking the stars behind it. Its size was greater than any city. Its surface was smooth, cold, and dark. People looked up from every corner of the earth and saw it hanging in the sky like a black moon. For hours it did nothing. It simply floated, silent and unbroken. Then beams of light shot down from its underside, not with fire but with scanning brightness. Cities trembled beneath the strange glow. Machines on Earth stopped working as if life had been drained from them. Power grids failed. Communication lines broke. The world grew quiet, silenced by the presence of the shadow. Fear turned to panic. People fled, hiding in the streets, gathering in homes, praying to survive. Armies fired missiles, but none reached the ship. They were swallowed by invisible fields of force, dissolving before they touched the hull. The shadow did not fire back. It only watched. The silence was worse than any attack. Inside the chamber, the crystal sphere pulsed in rhythm with the ship's movements. Arun, Myra, and Raffi stood close, their faces pale in the golden light. The wheel turned faster, the gears grinding with power. "It is linked to them," Myra whispered. "The chamber feels their presence." Raffi's hands shook, but his voice carried determination. "If the chamber is linked, then maybe it can fight. Maybe it is the key." Arun placed his hand on the stone pillar. The crystal pulsed stronger beneath his touch, as if it recognized him. For a moment he felt the same quiet voice he had sensed before, deep inside himself. It was not fear. It was resolve. He turned to the others. "This is the moment. The builders left us more than a warning. They left us a chance. But it is not only for us. It is for all humanity. We must bring them here. We must show them what the chamber can do." Outside, the shadow ship loomed in silence. Humanity stood at the edge of despair. The calendar wheel continued to turn, its rhythm steady and strong. The world had reached the moment foretold in stone. The arrival had come. The first shadow ship remained in the sky, silent and still. It did not send a message, nor did it strike. It simply hovered, dark and immense, while the world beneath it trembled. People lived under its shadow as though the sky itself had turned against them. In the chamber, the calendar wheel continued to turn. Its gears clicked loudly, the sound echoing through the stone halls. The crystal sphere glowed with increasing strength, pulsing like a heartbeat. Arun, Myra, and Raffi stayed close, their faces lit by the golden light. Raffi paced back and forth. His voice was tense. "If the ship stays there, it is only waiting. Waiting to see what we will do. And when the others arrive, we will have no chance." Myra's eyes stayed fixed on the glyphs carved into the wall. Her voice was quiet but steady. "The chamber was not built to frighten us. It was built to guide us. We have not yet understood all of it." Arun placed his hand on the stone pillar once more. The crystal brightened under his touch, sending beams of light into the chamber walls. The star map returned, shining brighter than ever. But this time, the shapes were different. The map no longer showed distant galaxies or the path of the shadow ships. Instead, it revealed circles of light that overlapped one another, moving in harmony. Each circle was filled with human figures, standing hand in hand. Together, the circles formed a great wheel of light that mirrored the gears of the calendar itself. Myra gasped. "It is us. The chamber responds to us. It shows that people together create the pattern, not machines or weapons." Arun's voice grew stronger. "Then this is the key. The builders did not choose weapons because they knew the shadow cannot be defeated by force. It must be defeated by something only humanity carries: unity." Raffi frowned, confused. "But how can unity fight ships in the sky? We cannot throw our hands at them." Myra walked closer to the carvings. She traced her fingers over the human figures etched into the stone. "It is not our hands. It is our will. The chamber is a machine, yes, but it needs more than gears and stone. It needs us. It was designed to awaken only when people join together, just like the figures show." Arun nodded. "The builders believed in us. They trusted that one day, humanity would be ready to face this moment. We must bring people here. We must make them part of the wheel." The idea was strange, but the chamber itself seemed to answer. As they stood together before the pillar, the crystal pulsed brighter. The gears turned faster, as though their unity had already begun to feed the ancient design. Over the next days, people were brought to the chamber. Scientists, soldiers, villagers, and leaders all entered its halls. Many came with doubt, but the moment they stepped inside, they felt the same deep vibration in their chest. It was impossible to ignore. The air itself seemed alive. When groups of people stood around the calendar wheel, the crystal sphere blazed with golden fire. The light spread across the floor, forming glowing lines that connected one person to the next. The chamber reacted to their presence, amplifying their collective energy. The more people joined, the stronger the glow became. Raffi laughed with amazement when he saw it. "We are the missing part. We are the gears that make it move." Myra smiled, her eyes shining. "This is what the builders wanted. Humanity itself is the key." News of this reached the world quickly. At first, people thought it was impossible. But when groups of volunteers returned with stories of the chamber's light, more began to travel to the jungle. They came from every nation, every culture, speaking different languages, yet all carrying the same purpose. In the chamber, the calendar wheel spun with greater speed as hundreds gathered around it. The golden lines of light covered the floor and walls, rising like flames of hope. The crystal sphere glowed so brightly it was hard to look at. But above, the shadow ship began to react. It turned slowly in the sky, as if sensing the power rising from the earth below. A low hum filled the air, spreading across continents. Machines failed once again, lights flickered, and people felt the heavy pressure of the shadow. Inside the chamber, Arun stood at the center of the wheel. His voice carried across the hall. "Do not be afraid. The shadow seeks to divide us, but it cannot enter here. The builders left this gift for us, and together we will awaken it fully." The people joined hands, forming circles just as the carvings had shown. The chamber answered with a great surge of energy. Light burst from the crystal sphere, brighter than the sun, rising through the roof and into the sky. For the first time, the shadow ship moved. It shifted back as if struck by the force of the light. The dark hull shimmered against the golden beam, and a crack appeared across its surface. The world below watched in awe as the silent giant trembled. Raffi shouted with joy. "It works. We can fight them. Not with weapons, but with ourselves." Myra's eyes filled with tears. The builders were right. Humanity is stronger together than any shadow. The ship pulled back, retreating into the sky. But more were still coming. Telescopes showed the rest of the fleet approaching, dark shapes moving faster toward Earth. The chamber's light dimmed as exhaustion spread among the people inside. Arun raised his hands, his voice steady. "This was only the beginning. One ship has felt our strength, but many more are near. We cannot stop now. The chamber was not built for a few. It was built for all. We must unite the world, or the shadow will return stronger than before." The people inside the chamber bowed their heads in agreement. They had felt the truth with their own bodies. The chamber was not a weapon of stone and gear. It was a mirror of humanity's spirit, designed to awaken only when enough hearts beat as one. Outside, the dark ships drew closer. Their outlines grew larger against the stars. The countdown had reached its final hours. But for the first time, the world was no longer afraid. The chamber had shown them their power. Humanity had found its key. The shadow fleet grew larger every night. One ship had already tested Earth, and it had been forced to retreat before the golden light of the chamber. But now dozens more moved steadily across the stars, each one vast and silent. Astronomers counted them and shared the news. The world listened in fear, but also in hope, because the chamber had shown that humanity was not helpless. In the jungle, the ancient chamber no longer belonged only to explorers and scholars. Thousands arrived every day. Families walked through the thick forest carrying little more than water and faith. Soldiers stood beside children, and elders stood beside the young. No one was turned away. The chamber welcomed all who came. Inside, the golden lines of light grew stronger. When people stood hand in hand around the wheel, the crystal sphere blazed like a second sun. The gears spun faster than ever before, filling the air with a sound like the beating of drums. The chamber was alive, powered not by machines but by human unity. Arun stood near the center, guiding the gathering. His voice was steady and calm. Do not be afraid. Every hand matters. Every heart adds strength. The builders gave us this gift because they believed in us. Together we will endure. Myra worked tirelessly, teaching the meaning of the carvings to newcomers. She showed them how to form the circles, how to hold one another, how to let the chamber's rhythm guide them. She spoke not with fear but with faith, her eyes shining with quiet strength. Rafi moved among the people, encouraging them with his energy. He laughed when they were tired, lifted children onto his shoulders so they could see the glowing wheel, and reminded everyone that even the smallest presence mattered. One hand may be small, he said, but many hands can move mountains. Above the earth, the shadow ships reached the orbit of the moon. Their cold shapes blocked the stars. From the ground, people everywhere could see them. Some fell to their knees in fear, but others raised their hands to the sky. The story of the chamber had spread across every land, and millions now believed. On the day the fleet approached Earth, the chamber was filled beyond its walls. Circles of people stood shoulder to shoulder, reaching far into the jungle outside. The golden light spread from the crystal, through the wheel, and out into the forest. Trees glowed as if filled with fireflies. Rivers reflected the brightness like liquid gold. The power of humanity pulsed across the land. Then the ships struck. Beams of dark energy fell from the sky, not fire but waves of silence that swallowed sound and light. Cities trembled. Machines failed once more. The ground shook as the shadows pressed their weight upon the planet. But inside the chamber, the crystal sphere shone brighter than ever before. The golden beam rose upward, piercing the clouds and splitting the sky. It struck the first of the ships, burning across its hull. The ship shuddered, cracks spreading across its surface. The golden light did not come from stone or crystal alone. It came from the people, from their joined hearts and voices. The ship broke apart, falling into fragments that burned harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. Cheers erupted across the chamber. People cried out in joy and disbelief. They had destroyed a ship that no weapon on earth could touch. Yet more shadows remained. The fleet spread out, surrounding the planet like a cage. Their beams struck again, dark and cold. But the chamber answered. The more people joined, the brighter the light became. Across the world, in cities and villages, people formed their own circles. They did not stand inside the chamber, but the story had reached them, and they raised their hands together, repeating the same rhythm. The chamber responded. The golden light extended across oceans, linking one circle to another. The whole world became part of the wheel. Humanity itself had become the machine. Arun felt the energy rise like a tide. His voice carried across the chamber. We are one people. We are one light. Together we are stronger than the shadow. The crystal blazed, brighter than the sun itself. Golden beams shot into the sky, striking ship after ship. Each one trembled under the force of human unity. Hulls split apart, engines shattered, and the shadows fell. The earth shook, but this time with triumph, not fear. Myra wept as she held her journal close. This is what the builders saw. This is why they believed. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is the light. Rafi shouted with joy, raising his arms high. We are winning. Look at them run. Indeed, the last of the shadow fleet turned to retreat. The golden light followed, pushing them back into the depths of space. The sky cleared. Stars returned, shining brightly above the world. For the first time in history, humanity had stood together as one and had triumphed. When the battle ended, silence filled the chamber. The crystal dimmed, returning to a gentle glow. The gears of the calendar slowed, clicking softly as they returned to their steady rhythm. The people fell to their knees, exhausted but alive. Arun stood quietly, his face calm but filled with pride. The builders gave us a gift, but we gave it life. They trusted us to endure, and we have. The shadow is gone, not because of a machine, but because of us. Myra stepped beside him. The calendar was never about the end of time. It was about a beginning. A new cycle. We are the start of it. Rafi laughed softly, though his voice was tired. And to think, we only came looking for ruins in the jungle. The people in the chamber began to rise. They embraced one another, strangers now turned to family. The golden lines still glowed faintly beneath their feet, a reminder that unity had become their greatest strength. In the days that followed, the world changed. Nations no longer looked at one another with mistrust. The story of the chamber was told in every language, passed from parent to child. Schools taught not only science and history but also the lesson of unity that had saved the planet. The calendar wheel remained in the jungle, turning slowly as it always had. The crystal sphere glowed softly, no longer blazing but alive with quiet light. People visited from every land, not to prepare for war but to remember the day humanity stood together. Arun, Myra, and Rafi often returned to the chamber. They never claimed to be heroes. They always said the true heroes were the countless hands that had joined across the world, the people who had believed in one another when the sky was darkest. And so the Mayan calendar chamber of death became known by a new name. It was no longer a chamber of fear but a chamber of life, a place where humanity discovered its true strength. The shadow had come, but the light had endured. Humanity had faced the test written in stone thousands of years ago. And humanity had triumphed.